Hello, my name is Siska Febriana Sitompul with student ID number 221073204, and today I will explain about my comprehension about a topic called discourse and conversation. And in this topic we have three learning focus, which are: the first one is the definition of conversation analysis, and the second one is the history of conversation analysis, and the last one is about the basic conversation analysis principles or core assumptions. So, conversation analysis, or often shortened into CA, is the analysis of the conversations. So, in our life, we often have conversation, either it with the people we know or with the people we don't know, or the people we just randomly encountered in station, in airport, or on the road, etc. The conversation can be direct or indirect. Like, the direct one is when you talk face to face to the people, and the indirect one is when you have the conversation through a call, through telephones. But not all conversation considered as conversation, because there are some things that makes some conversation not considered as conversation. The conversation that we have with the people on the road, for example, is a conversation. But a conversation that we have during the medical checkup or the doctor appointment about certain disease, then that's not considered as conversation, because when it comes to consultation or some sort of that, the social import is rather different than most conversations are. So, the conversation analysis is also involved in the study of the orders, or of the talk, of the interaction, or whatever its character or its setting. Um, the conversation analysis was firstly introduced in the 1960s, where it was used um, to examine the conversation in the telephone. Um, the early research focused on the aspect of the categorizations and the sequential organization to highlight the meaning of an utterance and how it influenced by its position in a conversations. And the early focus of the conversation analysis was the recordings from the institutional context, such like suicides calls as a suicide notes, or group therapy sessions. But it was gradually broadened into um, non-institutional conversation. This was primarily because of the expert or the researchers were motivated by the desire to more understand about the fundamental mechanism of conversation, such like turn taking in conversation, or the opening or the closing in the form of conversation. So it leads in the 1970s that the expert or the researchers change it back into institutionally um, based interaction. For example, like meetings, interview, or the courtrooms. Um, so the renewed interest in this conversation analysis, to be back into the institutional talks, is to understand the concept by John Heritage about the settings that are talk uh, about the settings that are talk into beings. And now there are two branches of conversation analysis. The first one is pure conversation analysis, that is focused on the fundamental structures and the process operate within the specific institutional context. And the second one is applied conversation analysis, which focus on the structures within the specific institutional context. And the from the very beginning that the conversation analysis was introduced back in the 1960s until now, the conversation analysis has expanded beyond its sociological origins into larger research. It includes like anthropology, linguistics, and communication studies, so that it is now applied to diverse range of situation, like such as child socialization, which relates to psychology, educational practices, social interaction, judicial setting, political discourse, and many more. Um, there are also some differences between conversation analysis and the other research approaches. Um, the first difference is about that conversation analysis examines details, um, examines more details about human interaction that are lost in other research practices. This is because the conversation analysis works with detailed interactional activities like such as recordings or transcripts, rather than other research that based on coded or counted. And the second difference is the conversation analysis favors naturally occurring data than the experimental or the research provoked ones. This because this because the talk and interaction um, as a situated achievement rather than just a product of personal intention. And the third one is conversation analysis perspective of human interaction is organized. Um, this is because the conversation analysis doesn't see people talking as a series of individual acts, but rather as an organized event, because like it's organized between one people to another, not just like the series of individual acts while people talking to each other. So um, it doesn't make any sense if it's individual acts. And the fourth one is the conversation analysis can be seen as a study of language um, as it is used. This because the conversation analysis studies oral language, which means like how people speak, that it is used interactionally in most situations, in natural situations. And move on to the third subtopic, which is the basic principles of conversation analysis and also the core assumption. So the first one I would like to talk about the basic principles. So there are four basic principles of conversation analysis. The first one is turn taking. Turn taking is the systematic turn where the conversation happen with someone. Like a speaker's turn ends when they pass the floor of conversation to the next people. And the second one is the sequential organization, which means that the what said next, it depends on what has been said earlier. And the third one is preference organization. This related on how people uh, expect about the response of other people. For example, like the response yes to an invitation is preferable rather than the no, which means rejection. And the fourth one is the repair mechanism, and this means like the participant can detect or can correct the misunderstandings in the conversation. Like for example, when we have conversation and there is a misunderstanding between us as the speaker with the other person, then we can detect it and correct it immediately. while we talk to the person. And next is the core assumption. In core assumption, there are also 5 points. The first one is talk is action oriented. This means like the conversation is not just like exchanging information, but it also perform like actions such as promising, requesting, and also asking, apologizing, and etc. And the second one is the context is locally produced. This means like all the dialogues or utterances can shape the current social context between the people that have conversation with. And the third one is the intersubjectivity is key. It means that the participant continuously work to ensure the mutual understanding between them and also the other participant, because if they lost during the conversation, then the conversation will end and they lost in translation. And the first one is the no utterance is random. This means like every aspect that happened in the conversation, including pauses, overlaps, or the changes of tones, all of them carries meaning. So none of them meaningless because they have meaning. And the last one is the analysis. The analysis must be data driven. This means that the conversation analysis relies on the detailed recordings and transcripts of real conversation, and to be analyzed them without preconceived theory. So it's real time and with the detailed information about the recording or the transcript of the real conversation that occur within real people. So yeah, I think that's all that I can say about this topic. And so bye bye.